I get a lot of questions about what does this even have to do with my hormones? So today I want to unpack specifically the connection between your gut health and your hormonal health and the ways that they really impact each other. If you're new here, I'm Rita Johnson. I'm the owner of Health and Hormones. And here you'll find all things fatigue solutions, period help, gut healing, and so much more. Let's dive in. So I get asked a lot, gosh, what even does this mean? Right? The gut and hormone connection. And so let's unpack this a little bit. I do think that a lot of how conventional modern medicine is designed is that it's very specific to a particular function in the body, right? It's as if it's all siloed out. We have your neurologist who's dealing with your brain health. We have your rheumatologist who's dealing with a certain set of issues. We have your nephrologist who's dealing with things related to your kidneys. We have, our gastroenterologist who's dealing with our gut health. And then we have our primary care doctor who's supposed to oversee all of these things, right? Just like all of you at all of these different seasons. And the trouble is, and we get incredibly fractured into these different pieces, is that we know our lived experience is in one body. It's not separated out into this only has to do with my hormonal health, and this only has to do with my mental health, and this only has to do with my gut health, but it is in fact integrated. And so too should be our approach to health, especially when we're looking at it preventatively. If somebody has cancer in a very specific region of their body, then yes, they need a cancer doctor, and they might need somebody that's very specific to that region. If somebody needs a surgical procedure, I want it to be an expert in that organ system of my body. However, when I'm looking at my day-to-day life, how am I living in balance and in optimal health? I want someone that's taking a zoomed out picture and looking at my body as a whole. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit here. Now, I want you to know that a lot of times when we try to do this, we try to make this like, okay, let's keep it all together, all these different systems of our body. It's really hard to wrap our brains around. And part of that I like to say is because we are approaching a mystery, and a mystery is just anything that we can't completely understand. We know that there's this strong interplay between systems, right? We know that sleep is going to impact our hunger cues as much as it's going to impact our energy levels and our hormonal health. But sometimes in our day-to-day lived experience, we're also a little disconnected from that. So today I want to talk specifically about the relationship between your gut health and your hormones. So anytime someone tells me they have two of these, symptoms in terms of like poor gut health or low motility, or they're slightly constipated, they're not going to the bathroom regularly, they have a lot of heartburn and digestion, and then there's something up with my hormones, right? As women, we say that a lot, like, oh, it's just a hormonal problem, as if that is something that just needs to be fixed by adding some progesterone cream or adding some, actual external hormonal support. The trouble is that when we have both of these things going on in our bodies, there is a strong interplay between them. A few reasons for this are that a lot of what we're metabolizing in our digestive tract are being built into hormones, right? So things like our healthy fats, cholesterol is what we need to make cholesterol-based hormones, which progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone are all cholesterol-based hormones. So in other words, if we're not metabolizing and breaking down our fats well, we're not going to make our hormones. And so we might need some external endogenous progesterone support, whether that's through the cream or bioidentical hormonal support during your cycle or through HRT. But we also need to be listening to, why is my body not making enough hormones on its own? And what can we do here to really dive into and support that more? So another example would be something like micronutrients. So our vitamins and our minerals. If we're not absorbing those well because there's inflammation in the digestive tract, for example, then again, we're not going to be able to do these basic functions that we need to be able to make our sex hormones. A very tangible example here would be supporting our adrenals. Our adrenals make precursor hormones to our sex hormones. So in other words, the building blocks to your hormones. Your adrenals are highly dependent on your mineral balance, and adrenals take a huge hit when we're under a lot of stress. So for example, earlier today I was speaking to somebody who has a very high stress job, and her doctor was asking me if she thought that she would benefit from some IV infusions or electrolyte supplement added in. And when she told me she has a very high stress job, I said, for sure, start there. Have her do that multiple times a day, because she's probably way under the amount of minerals her body needs to be able to handle that level of stress and make her sex hormones and do these other things that we need our body to do. So this is just a small example of this strong interplay between our gut health and our hormonal health. Another thing we need to be mindful of is estrogen metabolism in particular. So as we are done using up estrogen after we've had a burst of estrogen, and it's really less of a burst and more of a slow rolling increase, after ovulation, the estrogen level is going to start to fall off, and progesterone inhibits estrogen levels. Our body then needs to get rid of the used up hormones, in this case, the estrogen. And so how it's going to do that is pass it through the digestive tract. It will go through the liver, and the liver, essentially, I like to think of it as turn that estrogen off. And then as that estrogen's turned off, it's passed through the bowels. Well, if that liver is congested, particularly that phase 2 liver detoxification pathway, then what's going to happen is instead the estrogen, instead of getting turned off and passed out, is turned back on and sent back into the body. And this can lead to symptoms of estrogen dominance. It can lead to things like fibroids or cysts growing. It can lead to heavy clots during the period, and really a cascade of symptoms from there. A lot of times we need to then re-support that liver in those detoxification pathways so that the estrogen metabolism can happen the way that it ought. This particularly gets a little hairy when we get into perimenopause, because there are other microbial changes happening in perimenopause. And I like to think of perimenopause as like a no-nonsense time for our body. It's like, you might have been able to get away with that in your 20s and 30s, but now that you're in your 40s and you're entering into perimenopause, things are shifting, and we have to really lean into how best can I support my body in this season. And something like poor estrogen metabolism is going to wreak havoc on that, because again, it's going to be more sensitive to that now than it used to be. So what are some easy swaps that you can incorporate in your day-to-day life? This may be helpful for some people. Some people do need a deeper dive into their gut health and really rebalancing it. But initially, you could try things like a good quality probiotic and see if that is helpful for your beneficial bacteria. Sometimes we just need to support the good guys so we can crowd out some of those bad guys. You can also do that dietarily with lacto-fermented foods, things like sauerkraut or pickled red onions or dilly carrots, sourdough bread, that kind of thing. Some other things you could do, especially if when I was talking about the liver detoxification, you were like, I wonder if that's me, is I would incorporate more vegetables that are from the cruciferous family of vegetables. So your broccoli, your Brussels sprouts, your cauliflower, your kale, your cabbage, those are going to be really good at helping support that phase 2 liver detoxification. And then, of course, lots of fluids and even some dandelion root tea can be very supportive as well. So I hope this is helpful for you. Let me know, what questions do you have when you think about or hear these different connections? What are things you'd like to hear somebody unpack?